Hi, I'm Cody Smith with Cloyes Gear and Products. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to service the timing chain and balance shaft chain components on GM Ecotec non-variable valve timing engines using Cloyes aftermarket replacement parts. Here are the components we're going to be using today. This is our 9-4201S kit. It comes with all the primary timing chain components. It's going to come with your primary chain, guides, sprockets, and your tensioner. And this is the 9-4202S kit. This covers your balance shaft components. It comes with the balance shaft chain, guides, sprockets, and the tensioner for the balance shaft system. To get started, you're going to want to remove your valve cover and your front engine cover, and then rotate your engine to #1 top dead center. If you're servicing the timing chain due to a timing chain failure, you're going to want to take care on rotating the individual shafts. This is an interference engine and you can experience piston to valve contact. To make sure you're in the correct location, your crank keyway should be straight up at 12 o'clock. On your intake cam, your intake timing mark should be over at 2, and on your exhaust cam, the exhaust timing mark should be at 10. The first timing component you need to remove is the primary timing chain tensioner. Next, you're going to remove the upper timing chain guide. The next step is going to be to remove the exhaust cam sprocket bolt. To do that, you're going to want to use a wrench on the hex feature of the camshaft. Simply break the bolt loose. When you remove this bolt, it is a torque to yield bolt. You'll get a new one with the kit. Simply throw it away. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove the exhaust cam sprocket. You're going to want to use that hex feature on the camshaft again. Rotate the shaft slightly clockwise to remove the overlap valve spring pressure. Next, you're going to remove the timing chain tensioner guide. You'll have to remove this through the top of the engine. And next, the left-hand guide access plug. And now that you have your access plug out, you can remove the 2 bolts for the left-hand guide. Next, we're going to remove the intake cam sprocket bolt, the intake cam sprocket, and the timing chain. So once again, you're going to use your hex feature on your camshaft. Break your bolt loose. Throw your bolt away. And go ahead and remove your intake cam sprocket and finesse your chain out from the bottom through the top. Next, you're going to simply remove your crank sprocket. Make sure not to lose your key. And then go ahead and remove your balance shaft chain tensioner. Followed by the tensioner guide. Next, remove your left-hand balance shaft guide. Followed by the upper balance shaft guide. Now that you have all the balance shaft guides removed, you can go ahead and remove your balance shaft chain. Followed by your drive sprocket. Once again, be sure not to lose your crank key. Now that your balance shaft chain and your drive sprocket are removed, the only balance shaft components left are the balance shaft sprockets. However, this is your water pump, and if you plan on replacing the water pump, now would be an opportune time to do so. To remove the balance shaft sprockets, you must remove the balance shaft from the engine. In order to do so, you simply take out the bearing carrier bolt. Make sure you do these one at a time to ensure proper shaft location. Once you remove the shaft from the engine, you're going to want to use a protective clamping method in order to secure the shaft to remove the bolt. Be sure not to clamp on any of the machine surfaces, including the bearing surfaces. With the shaft still secure and the bolt removed, install the new balance shaft sprocket. Ensure that you install the correct sprocket on the correct shaft. They are labeled intake and exhaust. You will also notice they're an aftermarket upgraded design without the OE style cushion rings. Reinstall the bolt to 37 foot-pounds. All right, go ahead and reinstall your balance shaft with the new intake balance shaft sprocket. And you're going to reinstall your bearing carrier bolt to 89 inch-pounds. Now do the same for the other shaft. Now we're going to remove and place the timing chain oil jet. Once you remove the oil jet, ensure the port behind it is clean from any sludge or debris. Torque the bolt to 89 inch-pounds. Before we install the balance shaft chain, I'm going to show you a quick demonstration on the timing chains. In all cases, you're going to have two similarly colored links and one uniquely colored link. In all cases, the uniquely colored link will be aligned on the respective intake shaft. What you're going to see out of the Cloyes set will be the one yellow and two black arrangement. Next, install your inner crank sprocket, ensuring your key's still in place. To install the balance shaft chain, you want to align your uniquely colored link straight up with the intake side balance shaft sprocket timing mark. Should be straight up at 12 o'clock. On your exhaust side balance shaft sprocket, your timing mark should be straight down at 6, and it will align with one of the similarly colored links of the balance shaft chain. Chain then needs to wrap around the water pump sprocket and then down to the crank sprocket, which has a timing dot straight down at 6, which will also align with one of the similarly colored links. Now that you have the balance shaft chain installed, we're going to go ahead and install the balance shaft chain guides. One thing to look for, these guides have a lip on both sides. Ensure the chain rides directly in the center. Once you get the bolts installed, torque them to 89 inch-pounds. Next is your left-hand balance shaft guide. And once again, these are going to be torqued to 89 inch-pounds. Next, install your balance shaft tensioner guide. Next, we're going to install the balance shaft chain tensioner. The chain tensioner should come in a deactivated state, meaning it has the pin installed. If you ever need to install an activated tensioner, you need to turn the tensioner piston 90 degrees, compress it, turn it back, and then reinstall the pin. All right, we're now ready to install the balance shaft tensioner. These bolts also torque to 89 inch-pounds. Now that we have the balance shaft tensioner installed, we can go ahead and recheck our timing alignment marks. On the intake side balance shaft sprocket, your timing mark should be straight up at 12, aligned with the unique colored link. On your exhaust side balance shaft sprocket, the timing mark should be straight down at 6, aligned with one of the similarly colored links. And on your inner crank sprocket, your timing mark should be straight down at 6, aligned with the other similarly colored link. Now that you've verified the timing marks, it's time to pull your pin. Now I'm going to install the crank sprocket. We're now going to install the primary timing chain. To do so, you're going to want to find the unique timing link on the chain and align it with the intake timing mark of the cam sprocket. You're then going to work the chain down through the cam drive chest. You can't see it on the video, but there are two engine block casting bosses right here. You're going to want to ensure the chain goes on both sides of those bosses. Once you work the chain through, go ahead and loop the chain over the crank snout, then index the sprocket onto the camshaft. We're now going to install the intake sprocket bolt. You really just want this to be installed hand tight for now. We're now going to install the primary timing chain tensioner guide. You're going to have to install this through the top of the engine. You're going to torque the bolt to 89 inch-pounds. Now we're going to install the exhaust cam sprocket. To do so, go ahead and pull up your chain. You're going to align your exhaust timing mark with your similarly colored link on your chain. Go ahead and install your sprocket bolt. You want your sprocket bolt just loose enough to where the sprocket can still kind of free spin on the bolt. You're now going to want to check your alignment on your crank sprocket. Ensure your timing mark is on the correct tooth. Then you're going to kind of cradle and hold the chain while you take your 24mm wrench on your intake cam, turn counterclockwise just tight enough to take the slack out of that side of the chain. And then you're going to want to index your exhaust cam sprocket onto your camshaft. Once your exhaust cam sprocket is indexed onto the cam sprocket, you can use your wrench on your hex feature of the camshaft and hand tighten the sprocket. Now that you've got your sprockets and chain installed, you can go ahead and install your left-hand guide. Torque the bolts to 89 inch-pounds. You can then install your access plug, use a little bit of thread sealant on the threads, and torque it to 66 foot-pounds. So before we install the primary tensioner, we need to check our timing alignment one more time. On the intake cam, you want your intake timing mark at 2 o'clock aligned with the unique colored link. On the exhaust cam, you want your exhaust timing mark aligned with one of the similarly colored links at about 10 o'clock. And down on your crank, you want your crank dot aligned with the other similarly colored link. Now let's talk about primary time and chain tensioners. GM had a few different designs over the years. What you're going to get out of the Cloyes kit is the latest design. The tensioner should come deactivated, meaning the piston should pull in and out of the housing freely with no spring tension behind it. That is as opposed to an activated tensioner, which will have spring tension behind the piston. The tensioner must be installed in the deactivated state. If you need to install a tensioner that's already been activated, you must remove the snap ring from the end of the housing, pull the ratcheting mechanism out of the housing, compress and turn clockwise until the ratcheting mechanism cage stops, and then replace it back into the housing and replace your snap ring. All right, well, we're now ready to install the primary time and chain tensioner. Go ahead and install it into the block. You're going to tighten this down to 55 foot-pounds. All right, now that we got the timing chain tensioner installed, we need to go through the timing chain tensioner activation process. It's a good idea right now to quickly check your timing mark alignments real quick. As long as those are good, you can feed this soft tip pry bar down through the cam drive chest onto the cam chain, and you want to push in at least 2 millimeters up against the timing chain tensioner in order to activate it. Now that you got your primary tensioner activated, we're going to go ahead and torque the torque to yield cam sprocket bolts. To do that, use your wrench on the hex feature of the camshafts, torque the bolts to 63 foot-pounds plus an additional 30 degrees. We're now ready to install the upper timing chain guide. Torque the bolts to 89 inch-pounds. Once you get your upper guide installed, go ahead and reinstall your valve cover. Install your valve cover bolts to 89 inch-pounds, and then you can install your front timing cover and the bolts torqued to 18 foot-pounds. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, contact me, Cody Smith at Cloyes Gear and Products. Phone number 479-646-1662, and I'm extension 228.